Well, first off, good morning, and I want to thank everyone for coming out. As you know, hey Jeff, you made it. How are you, brother? Great. First off, let me catch my breath. It's another exciting day here at Blight Busters. We've been working with our friends from J.C. Beal and the Governor's Michigan Prison Reentry Initiative, and of course our youth group, to continue Blight Busters' effort to stabilize and revitalize this community. Of course, we're at the Motor City Resource Center, which we help restore and turn into a community asset, which is just across the street from not only the historic Redford Theater, but also the Artist Village Detroit, where we are in the process of completing the Motor City Java House and Cafe, which will be a really great neighborhood gathering place. Of course, it's the home of public artworks, and Chaz Miller, the Picasso of Detroit, and his effort to teach kids and mentor kids and paint murals and beautify this city in conjunction with Blight Busters' effort to provide housing and opportunity as we work together to create homeowners and business owners. I'm very excited to have Andy Dillon here today. We have been talking back and forth at different functions, and we are very, very pleased that he has an agenda for Detroit. We all know that as a people, we need to learn to put our petty differences aside and focus in on the kinds of things that are going to benefit everyone, both the city and the suburbs. You know, when you look at a world map, it just says Detroit, and the state of Michigan and the city of Detroit are like brother and sister. One must help the other for this state and this region to be competitive, to be the kind of place where we can attract families, where we can educate our children and create the kind of hope and discipline that our children are looking for. So we must lead together as we rebuild the city and as we rebuild this state. I'm going to turn this over to Andy Dillon, and he's going to share you his vision in our effort to make Detroit and this region better. Thanks, folks.
Thank you, John. Thank you, and Blight Busters, thanks for letting us come today. This is what we call our workbook tour, where we put on paper what we think is the turnaround plan for the state of Michigan. And I can tell you, I don't have to, we all know how tough it's been in Michigan, but in the last 10 years, 50% of all job loss in the United States has happened right here in Michigan. We've gone from a top 20 per capita income state to a bottom 10. So it's reality, we're poor, we've got to figure out how to get this turned around. But we've inherited enough legacy assets, in my mind, to get it turned around. And there's four main things that I identified that will help us get it turned around. Despite all this job loss, we're number 2 in the country in research and development investment. That means the knowledge-based economy that every state and every city we compete with in every country, it's sitting right here. And that, to me, can be the pipeline for the middle-class jobs of the future. Second biggest industry gets lost on us a little bit in this part of the world, but it's agriculture. It's a $70 billion industry. I look back and think if we spend a third of our time we spend focusing on preserving manufacturing, about growing ag, there's huge job creation potential in that sector of the state's economy. Number 3 is tourism. And it's not just the Great Lakes and the hunting and the fishing and the golf in the state. It's the city of Detroit with the stadiums and the arts offerings in the city and the museums. There's a great quality of life that we have in the city, and that's why I came back to Michigan after going to college out of state, living in New York City and Arizona and DC. I love living here. I don't live too far from here. I'm in Five and Beach, born and raised in Redford Township. The quality of life here is great. I got 4 kids at home. I want them to stay here in Michigan. So we in government and with folks like in the nonprofit community have to work together to get this thing turned around so that you guys have a future and a chance to stay in the state. In this book, what we call Renewing the Michigan Dream, there's something called the Urban Agenda. And I'm very proud and pleased to have the endorsements of former Mayor Archer, Ken Cockrell, Mayor Bing. But their endorsements didn't come just because I asked. Mayor Archer initially really pushed me aggressively on how are you going to help our urban areas. And we put together what we thought was a 12-point urban agenda. But as we've done these workbook tours, this is not a one-way communication where I'm telling you how we're going to fix it. It's my opportunity to tell you, here's the best ideas I've got, can you improve them? And a couple weeks ago, we were visiting a barbershop in Detroit, and the owner came up to me and he said, he gave a good idea, which is now the 13th point of the urban agenda. He says, a lot of the people that live in the city, they can't get a job, but he goes, they might start a business, and they need a little bit of mentoring help. And he goes, they don't need $500,000 or $1 million, maybe as little as $5,000 that they can cobble together to start a t-shirt business or start a vegetable business in the city. But they need a little bit of mentoring help. They need a little bit of advice from a lawyer maybe, or from an accountant, or from a business guy that can tell them, how to make certain that they succeed. And we're having this conversation in his barbershop, and there's a guy a couple benches down who lives in Grosse Pointe, grew up in Detroit, has started a business, is very successful. He's giving back to the city. He's taken 300 kids in August down to Cedar Point. He gives money every year to the DPS sports programs. I mean, he's committed to the city. And he said, look, I'll help. Here's a business guy willing to help. So the 13th point in this plan is talking about entrepreneurism and helping people start a business on their own. And a lot of times in Lansing, when we talk about entrepreneurism and diversifying the state's economy, people are thinking about some inventor or professor at a university and how do we commercialize their idea. Well, it's not just about that. It's also about someone starting their own barbershop or starting their own bake store. And we in Detroit can add that to the 13th point agenda and recruit mentors that will help small business folks get started with their own careers and their own companies. So I was pleased to add that to that. And that's why we're here today. And I can tell you, as I've been traveling the state, this is probably our 8th or 10th stop on the workbook tour, I've come to learn something. When you talk to folks, whether it be folks like Blight Busters or the nonprofit communities or the faith-based communities, what I've learned is government, we can come up with all the great ideas in the world and not change anyone's life. Because if there's not buy-in at the grassroots level, our programs won't work. So what you'll see with me as a governor is the first thing I'm going to do is appoint someone in my cabinet that's responsible for implementing the urban agenda. Because the urban agenda is not just about one thing. There's not one magic bullet that's going to turn our cities around. It's not just access to jobs. It's access to transportation so they can get back and forth from their jobs. It's to make certain that their kids have access to a great education. It's to make certain that they're safe in their neighborhoods and their homes so that there's police and fire on the streets, that they have access to affordable health care. So it's a complicated plan to deal with the urban agenda, and it's going to take crossing a lot of barriers. Even within state government, there's 4 or 5 different departments that can have a direct impact on the city, from corrections to community health to human services. And there's a lot of different departments, and you're going to need someone that can cut through those departments with the authority from the governor to make certain we're moving the needle. But it doesn't even end there. It also means that that person has to have the ability to pick up the phone and call Mayor Bing or call Bob Ficano and have him answer it. Because if we're going to try to move the needle on a healthcare issue or an education issue or a public safety issue, it's bringing a lot of people together. So that's going to be the first thing I do as governor, is make certain I have the right leadership there and meet on a weekly basis to make certain that this urban agenda is actually moving the needle and changing people's lives for the better. And we'll be reaching out to you guys here at Blight Busters, because as I drive through the city and you look, and I just think, I think about, a young kid walking to and from school or to and from grandma's house, and when they're walking by abandoned buildings and, dangerous areas, it doesn't instill in them a sense of spirit. And that's why what you're doing here is so, so important. That as we start to take some pride in our city and we clean it up, when kids are walking back and forth, when they see people are committed to turning the city around, it will inspire some confidence and hope in them to fight through some of the challenges that they face. So you're going to see a point person with me, and I hope we're back here a year from now. So this isn't, goodbye, this is hello. As the governor, I want you guys to be a partnership in what we can do at the state. And I don't want us dictating from the state how we do it. I want a back and forth input. So when we do these tours, I usually don't go on as long as I have this morning, because I really want input from you about what are we missing, how can we make things better, how can we be a partner in what you're trying to accomplish here, because you're doing great things. Can we help you do it better and faster in a more robust way? If the answer is to that, I'm all in, committed to help you do that. So with that, I'll close my comments and we can do some question and answer if you want. And I'll stick around and we can mingle here in the room so I get to talk to each one of you and learn from you what's working for you, what's not, what needs to change to make your lives better, so that you and your brothers and your sisters have access to a good education, that you feel safe in your neighborhoods, and that we find a way for you to get a job that will give you enough money to raise your own families and feed them and give them a chance for a good education. So the more I travel the state, the more confidence I can get we can turn this around. We can come up with the plans on paper, but if we're not working together, whether you're Republican or Democrat, or from the city or the suburb, from the east side of the state or the west side of the state, we're not going to turn this around. We are all in the same boat together, and this boat's in some rocky water now. But if we come together and work together and get focused on actually making things better, we can accomplish it. And the proof in that pudding is exactly what you guys have done. Your successes mean that if we are committed, we can make it better. And we can do it on a much broader scale if we get the state and the Republicans and the Democrats working together, and the city and the suburbs working together to advance this cause and create a better life for all of us. So with that, I will close my remarks. We'll answer any questions now, or we can just mingle after and learn from each other. So thanks for coming out today.